for Sheriff, Lord God. I pray that through their answers, through our wisdom, Lord, give us understanding of to decipher someone that will be honorable, that will speak truth, that will speak of freedom, that will speak of all your ways and your values that you've taught us, Lord God, that our county can be protected under your hand, Lord Jesus, and be led by people of integrity. We just thank you for this opportunity. We thank you for these candidates. Be with them and protect us, and may we all just learn and grow from what this evening is about. Thank you, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. You can be seated now. Well, with that, I'm going to turn the mic over to Matt Burns, and he's going to give you the outline of how the evening is going to work as far as the debate goes. Matt.
Thank you, Les. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by reading the debate rules, and then we'll move into candidate introductions. This debate is structured so that it does not promote or advance one candidate over another. The public expects tough questions and thoughtful answers. The debate will last approximately an hour and a half to 2 hours from open to close. Candidates have all been provided with the general subject topics to be debated, but not the questions. The moderators will present the question to a candidate. The moderator will allow rebuttal responses from the other candidates and possibly a final rebuttal response from the candidate who received the original question, if the moderator determines that the dialogue is important enough to continue. Some questions may not require a rebuttal response. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to each question, and rebuttal responses will be limited to 30 seconds each. Each candidate will receive the same number of questions and rebuttal times. A display time card indicating 10 seconds remaining will be utilized, which is right there in the front. The moderator and debate team will enforce the time limits. Opening and closing statements are limited to 60 seconds each. So at this time, I would ask Brian Butts for a 1-minute introduction.
Hi, my name is Brian Butts. I'm, surprise, surprise, candidate for Camden County Sheriff. I am a person who is intertwined with this community. I am raising 5th generation Camden County residents. My grandfather, great-grandfather on my father's side was a preacher in Climax Springs. My great-grandfather on my mother's side actually started Blair Cedar. So I am invested in this community and love it. I know for a fact I'm in a very unique position to understand just how great this community is, and that's why I'm sitting here today, because I feel like the community deserves it.
Thank you, Brian. Next, we'll ask Chris Egger to give a 1-minute introduction. Chris.
Thank you guys for setting this up, and thank you for everyone that's in attendance tonight. Little quick bit about me is I grew up north of Missouri, northern Missouri in Lawson, Missouri, as a farm boy. That's where I ended up acquiring my work ethics. Married to my beautiful wife, Amanda. We have 2 children, Austin and Aubrey, and 1 grandchild, Rowan. One of the things about me is I'm still in my mid-40s, so I'm not one that's going to be looking to retire. I will be a candidate as long as you guys allow me to be. I have nearly 20 years experience in law enforcement in many aspects throughout, from chief of operations at the prosecutor's office, throughout patrol, just about every type of position that there is in law enforcement. So thank you guys.
Thank you. Next, we will ask Jimmy Brashear to give a 1-minute introduction.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jimmy Brashear. I'm a 35-year full-time law enforcement officer. I started my career in 1989 working in a small town just south of Camden, or Camden County in the town of Richland. And I worked patrol there, and in '94 I came to work for Camden County. Through my career, I started with dispatch, and I worked patrol. I've worked in investigations, court security, and 8 years as in charge of the jail, and then currently 8 years as the chief deputy of Camden County. And through my career, when I first came here in 1994, I was here 3 months, and I was in a shootout, and I was shot in the line of duty. And when I was in the hospital, I was thinking, what am I going to do? And the only thing I could think about is I want to be a cop. And I did what I could to continue that, and I'm a dedicated law enforcement officer, and I'd like to finish my career as that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. Next, we'll ask Jeff Beecham to give a 1-minute introduction.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Beecham. I have been in law enforcement for 35 years. I started my career with the Camden Police Department, and that's where I'm currently at, serving as chief of police. I'm married. My wife, Kim, and we have 5 kids that are all grown. All 5 have went through the Camden School District. We have 7 grandkids. With the Camden Police Department, I moved up through the ranks. I started out as patrol, moving to patrol sergeant and to the lieutenant's position in 2011. And in 2020, I was appointed the chief of police.
Thank you, Jeff. Next, or last, whichever you want to say, Greg Sellers, 1-minute introduction.
I'm Greg Sellers. Again, I'm a candidate for your sheriff, Camden County. I've been a lifelong resident here in Camdenton. I live on a family farm that's been in my family for over 150 years. I've always lived on that farm. We run a small cattle operation there right now. I've run a couple of successful businesses throughout the years. In 1989, I got the opportunity to come to work for the Sheriff's Department. And I did that, and then in 2005 we started another business. We started an auction company as I was working at the Sheriff's Department. But I'd just like to say I'm vetted in this county. We were instrumental in starting the Montreal Fire Department. We used our land to build the firehouses on, and so I'm very interested in this county and very vetted in it. Thank you.
Thank you. The first question will go to Brian Butts. Brian, Republicans are seeking to have the term constitutional sheriff codified into the party platform. What is a constitutional sheriff, and do you plan to operate as one? 2-minute response.
I'll answer the second part first. Yeah, I do intend to operate as constitutional sheriff. And let me clarify something. The term constitutional sheriff is kind of a buzz term right now. The Republican Party is wanting to incorporate it. The legislature tried to pass a law recently with all sheriffs. Guys, every sheriff in the state of Missouri is a constitutional sheriff. That is by definition. It's by virtue of the United States Constitution, both the 10th and the 14th Amendments, and it is by virtue of the Missouri State Constitution. The statutes of Missouri plainly state that a sheriff is the chief law enforcement officer in a county. Chief means top. There is no one above a chief in that regard. The 10th Amendment, everyone is familiar with, I'm sure. That is basically stating that if the Constitution doesn't mention something, and the U.S. Constitution does not mention law enforcement, then that right is left to the states or the people. In Missouri's wisdom, thankfully, they define a sheriff as the chief law enforcement officer. That is a constitutional sheriff. That means that they have the highest authority of any law enforcement officer within the confines of the county. Even by virtue of the 14th Amendment, which this one really makes liberals' heads explode, the 14th Amendment leaves law enforcement and protecting the laws outlined in the Constitution to the states.
Thank you, Brian. Jeff Beecham, 30-second rebuttal if you want it.
I think I'll decline the rebuttal.
Okay. Jimmy Brashear, 30-second rebuttal.
I agree with Brian on this, but the sheriff is to uphold and defend the Constitution, particularly the Bill of Rights. And during the COVID 4 years ago, you saw that with us at the sheriff's office when we told the government that we're not going to shut down and we're not going to go knock on people's doors and look in their windows and see how many people's inside their homes. And we went on national TV with CNN and reported that and brought a lot of people to our county.
Thank you. Greg Sellers, 30-second rebuttal.
I don't know that I would put the term constitutional sheriff because the history has that as back in the years when that first started, has not necessarily a good thing. But absolutely, as a sheriff, as a conservative Republican, you're going to be bound by the Constitution, as you should be, and its laws.
Chris Egger, 30-second rebuttal.
Thank you. I agree, Brian. Yes, all sheriffs are supposed to be constitutional. That doesn't mean all sheriffs are constitutional or acting as constitutional. I think it's important to have a sheriff for Camden County that will stand up and protect your rights. And I am that guy. Thank you.
Brian, any final?
Just final, real quick. I don't want to single anybody out, but the last forum we had really kind of gave me a gut punch when I was the only candidate that openly and willingly said that they are willing to protect the citizens of this county's Fourth Amendment rights.
Thank you, guys. This question's for Jeff Beecham. The Camden County Commission recently passed an ordinance banning license plate reader cameras. As sheriff, would you utilize these readers? What would you do what would you do about the existing plate readers around Camden County? 2-minute response.
Okay, as far as the license plate readers go, they are a great tool for law enforcement. Here we're looking at a situation that we are, it's basically going to be your public safety versus the citizen's opinion on the violation of their rights by having these cameras out there. I think the biggest problem that we have is trust in the law enforcement. And, until we get further information about where all this data is going and where it's being saved, I can't say that I 100% support the cameras. The cameras, as I said, are a great tool. It's been proven that they have saved people's lives. Violent criminals have been apprehended just because of these cameras. And once again, it's all that data that's being presented from these cameras, and we have no idea where it's all going. And I understand the concerns. I have that concern, because we don't need all our data being spread throughout, the federal agencies and the state agencies. If we need to have more control over them. If we had the control and we had the trust of the law enforcement agencies, I would say I could be 100%. But until we do, I can't. As far as the cameras that exist right now, if they are on county property, there is an ordinance that says they can't be. I have read that as far as them not being on county property, they're actually being on city properties or on the state properties that the county cannot regulate whether they can be there or not. That's just something that we have to look into and figure that out. And once again, it all boils down to trust. You've got to have trust in your law enforcement. They'll take this data and appropriately use it. But in order to do that, you have got to have control.
Time. Thank you, Jeff. Jimmy Brashear, 30-second rebuttal.
Okay. Yeah. I know the LPRs that we use right now belongs to the state of Missouri, and we utilize that. And it's a great tool for us. It's, you know, we don't have a lot of law enforcement or people want to become law enforcement officers, so that's our extra eyes in the field to help us catch criminals and recover missing persons and silver alerts and amber alerts and things like that. It is an awesome tool for us to use.
Chris Edgar, 30 seconds.
Thank you. The license plate readers can be a great tool, but you also have to listen to the citizens that you serve, whether they are wanting it or not. With Brian, whenever we were at the forum, I am also the only candidate that when I said I would support it only if I had the correct policies and the protection for the citizens, that I know the citizens were protected. That's the only way that I would be able to support that.
Thank you. Greg Sellers?
I think they're a great tool for law enforcement as long as they're used in the proper way, and I believe so far they have been. Again, as far as the ones that are currently on state property, I believe they've got to stay. And as far as putting any on county properties, why they've already been, there's an ordinance against them.
Brian Butts, 30 seconds.
Franklin's quote about giving up liberty to purchase temporary safety comes to mind. But make no mistake, for law enforcement, these systems are not about safety. They're about convenience. As if no stolen car was ever recovered or no murder ever located before this technology existed. And if it comes to convenience or liberty, I'm going to choose liberty every single time.
Jeff Beecham, 30-second rebuttal.
As far as violation of your liberties, at this point, it has not been found that they are. And again, you know, we need to look at the control over them so that we don't get to that point where we violate people's rights and liberties. And you know, so, you know, as far as them being a violation at this time, we really can't say that they are. But you know, that's one thing we need to make sure that we don't do is violate them. And so we need to do more research before we get them.
Thank you. The next question is to Jimmy Brashear. Jimmy, employee retention is a bit of a struggle for the sheriff's office. What will you do as sheriff to retain deputies? 2-minute response.
You know, I teach for 25 years through the Law Enforcement Academy for Missouri Sheriffs. And when we first started doing that here at the lake, our academies was 25 average students, and it dwindled down to 6, and we're up to 14 because of the state grant that we have. So throughout the state, it's difficult to retain or find law enforcement officers. They're always just moving around and trying to find different places to go to. One of the things to keep those officers is continue their education. If they have a specialized training that they're wanting to go to, if they meet the needs for that, send them to that type of training and invest into those officers. On pay scales, you know, when we first took office in 2016, our deputies was making a little around $12 an hour. And in those 8 years as being the undersheriff and the sheriff himself, we've raised it over $22 an hour. So we're getting that pay up and helping those deputies. And we still need to continue to do that to raise those salaries and retain them that way. And I think fringe benefits, I think if they stay, that we should give them some type of bonus for retention bonus to stay longer than 5 years with us. I think that will help a lot. Some of the agencies are looking at doing hiring bonuses, but then you're looking at your officers that's been here for 5 years and they're not getting nothing out of it. I think if we set it up where if you're here 3 years, 4 years, or 5 years, do those bonuses at that time to help those officers and show that I'm going to stay and I'm going to get extra bonus for staying and helping out the deputies or helping out the office.
Thank you. Greg Sellers, 30-second rebuttal.
I don't believe the pay right now is the issue with the deputies staying. The ones I've talked to and the ones that have left, the ones that are still there, they're saying that they don't have the confidence in their leadership, and the pay scale has got to be fixed so they've got some light at the end of the tunnel.
Thank you. Chris Egger, 30 seconds.
Thank you. First, lead by example. They need a sheriff that's going to lead by example, that's going to be out there. Take care of the guys. First of all, how many places would you work knowing if you're going to work at that place, you're not going to see a raise at all? We need to take care of the deputies. They need a pay scale, so at least 10 years from now, they know where they're going to be getting paid. They can actually see a raise to recruit officers. We live in a gold mine here. We should be getting officers all over wanting to come to Lake of the Ozarks.
Thank you. Jeff Beecham, 30 seconds.
Okay, well, I personally know that pay will get them to your department, but pay won't keep them. So obviously there's something on the inside, and as everybody has said, that, you know, it's pretty much the culture in which they're working in. In order to keep people, that you got to make people happy, and you got to keep them happy. And one thing that you need to do is you need to make sure that you take care of them, and that you, you know, give them the opportunity to advance in their career.
Thank you. Brian Butts, 30 seconds.
It's not just about the pay. It's nice, and he's right. It attracts people. It doesn't make them stay. The problem what they have is the toxic environment. The sheriff's office is just absolutely rife with favoritism, cronyism, corruption, and deputies can only handle so much of it. So to fix it, I would do exactly what we did at the school. Get rid of those.
Jimmy, 30 seconds to respond to those responses.
You know, everybody's talking about a mass exodus at the sheriff's office, and that's not true. We retain a lot of our officers. Probably the biggest loss of employees that we have is in a jail, and a lot of those are civilians. They come to work for us and see that this is not for them, and then they leave. And I don't see a toxic environment for our people. You know, they enjoy working, and the only ones that really leave are the ones that don't pass the mustard on our department.
Thank you, Jimmy. The next question is for Greg Sellers. There's been a lot of discussion within the courthouse about using the Lake Area Narcotics Enforcement Group or Mid-Missouri Drug Task Force. As sheriff, which organization would you use and why? 2 minutes.
I would meet with both task forces. I am very familiar with the Lake Area Narcotics Enforcement Group, having worked for them or with them for a number of years. I am very familiar with Mid-Missouri Drug Task Force also. I do like the fact that the Lake Area Narcotics Enforcement Group is overseen by the Missouri Highway Patrol. Their evidence is turned in there. It's audited all the time. The money is distributed through them. They've got a lot of good attributes there. As far as the Mid-Missouri Drug Task Force, I would meet with them and see which one I felt was the best fit.
Thank you. Jeff Beecham, 30 seconds.
Well, it's amongst the law enforcement, it's no secret that we had LNEG for numerous years, and they just could not produce the numbers. And 2 years ago, I went ahead and went with Mid-Missouri Drug Task Force. Mid-Missouri Drug Task Force has done twice the work, if not 3 to 4 times more work than LNEG has.
Thank you. Jimmy Brashear, 30 seconds.
It costs us, the county, $12,000 a year to get an officer, and that's pretty cheap. We also get 3 troopers because it's held by the Highway Patrol. We use their evidence, and their buy money and their training is all through the Missouri Sheriffs. Mid-Mo, they have a federal agent working with them, and I know that a lot of constituents in the county don't want anything to do with the federal government, and that's one reason why I like LNEG better.
Thank you. Brian Butts, 30 seconds.
I'd work with both of them. I wouldn't use either one. Neither of those groups' focus is Camden County. And Camden County has little to no control over those groups. I would actually bring it back in-house, create a street crimes unit again, and start taking drug dealers and distributors off the street in Camden County.
Thank you. Chris Edgar, 30 seconds.
So if you've looked at where I've been on this, I would start a unit. I would not use LNEG. I would also team up with Mid-Missouri Drug Task Force. Ultimately, when you look at law enforcement, that gives you 7 counties to correct the area before it gets to Camden County. But if it's local, the citizens has control of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg Sellers, 30 seconds.
I would just like to say that none of the officers up here has probably got the amount of narcotics experience that I've got. They've not followed an investigation from start to finish to seeing the person go to prison, and they just aren't familiar with all the ins and outs of working a narcotics investigation.
The next question is for Chris Egger. Chris, racial division has been plaguing American law enforcement for 50 years. What policies will you implement at Camden County to help combat this?
Ultimately, if you look at our area now, we have a lot of ethnicity coming into Camden County. So officers need to be trained. That's one of the things. I work at Missouri State University. I'm a post instructor. I train police officers. And that's one of the things I train in is understanding different cultures, understanding because maybe one culture is not the same as us. So the officers having an understanding so they know how to deal with that. And broadening out, ultimately this area, it's not always going to be the same. I mean, it's growing, it's continuing to grow. We have, over the summer, we have such an influx of population, and it's not just racial, we also need to know how to deal with the mentally handicapped. I think that's huge. Maybe an officer might see somebody in distress, maybe they're having a diabetic attack, maybe they thought they were intoxicated and they're just having a diabetic attack. Those are things that officers need to know what to look for. They need to know how to address everybody in their community. That is part of community policing. I think we need to bring the whole sheriff's office back to the community to serve all people, not just one certain area, but the role of the sheriff is to serve every citizen of this county. So I think that needs to be taken care of. We need to, like I said, definitely lots more training. I think a lot of the training should be in-house. That's what one of my big jobs that I do now is train. We could save the sheriff's office quite a bit of money by bringing a lot of that in-house to where we're not having to send deputies out to different areas and pay for hotel expenses and so on. We could train them right here, and we can train a lot of them quickly. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff Beecham, 30 seconds.
Okay, well, cultural diversity is mandatory training to maintain your post certification. Every officer that is a peace officer in the state of Missouri has to take this training and has to do it annually. As far as policies and procedures, the policies are zero tolerance for any racial profiling or any type of racial bias.
Thank you. Jimmy Brashear, 30 seconds.
What they're saying, it also involves education and community engagement, working hand in hand and addressing issues that may arise throughout the time. And if we do have a situation that arises, it's better to meet with those organizations, work out what issues they have, and they can understand what issues we had, and work things out a lot sooner and calm the situation.
Thank you. Greg Sellers, 30 seconds.
There is mandatory training that has to be done every year for the officers, and it's good training. I don't believe we've got that issue here as bad as some areas do, but I think people should be treated by their character and not by their skin color.
Thank you. Brian Butts, 30 seconds.
It is actually required training, and I mean, there's not much more you can do about that. As far as policy, it's plain and simple. You treat everyone the same. You judge them by their actions, and you judge them by their attitude, not by the color of their skin. It doesn't matter.
Thank you. Chris Egger, final 30 seconds.
Everybody is correct. It is required training. I mean, I'm one of the instructors for that. But since when do we have to be status quo? Why can't, my philosophy was, let's educate more so to be reactive and not proactive or be proactive and not reactive. I think that's doing our citizens a very good service by making sure that everybody's taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question's for Jimmy Brashear. You've been undersheriff for nearly 8 years. Will you operate the sheriff's office in a similar fashion as Sheriff Helms? If not, what changes will you prioritize? 2 minutes.
One of the biggest things I'd prioritize, and I was working with, was doing the pay scale. I've been trying to do that for the last 2 years and been cut down on it, and that's one of the biggest things that I want to do. Another one is update our policies and procedures. I just implemented Lexipo. It's a nationwide company that does policies, and we're implementing that now, and hopefully it'll be in full stream by the end of the year. And I think another thing too is daily bulletins. Make sure that we're doing that, and online learning. And another thing too that the sheriff kind of failed to do was do weekly reports out to the community about what type of calls of service that we've been having. I think a lot of citizens don't know how busy our guys are. Just in 2023, we ran over 25,000 calls for service. And I think if the community knows what type of calls we're running every week, they would understand more of the need for more law enforcement officers in our community.
Thank you. Chris Edgar, 30 seconds.
Policies are extremely important. The big thing is, are you implementing those policies? Are you holding people accountable? We need a sheriff that's going to hold people accountable if they violate a policy, and make so everybody knows what's expected. Policies are set into place so you know, hey, if I do this, this is what's going to happen. We need to make sure that that's being held to the fire, making sure our citizens are protected and the deputies. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian Butts, 30 seconds.
Can you repeat the original question? Sorry, I think we
The
strayed.
original question was for Jimmy Brashears about being the undersheriff nearly 8 years, and I was asking what he would change or if he would continue the same path as Sheriff Helms.
I'm sorry, Jimmy, but when you sat up here and told everyone in this room that there's not a toxic culture, that worries me, and that means you're going to do things the same way. I'm a victim of it. I've talked to everyone in every department, and that word gets dropped constantly. And just for everyone's information, we actually recently spent $70,000 on Lexipol to come in and write our policies for us. They don't actually write them. They just give you the same policies that they give everyone else in the state, if you're lucky, in the country, and that doesn't work for local.
Thank you. Greg Sellers, 30 seconds.
I feel like, and I feel like that things would probably stay about the same as they are at the sheriff's department if Jimmy got back in. I honestly do, that's all I got to say.
Thank you. Jeff Beecham, 30 seconds.
Well, the priority needs to be with your people, and what you need to do is you need to get the culture to where people want to be there, and people want to do the work, and people want to follow the mission of the department. As far as the policies and procedures, you got to be firm on policies and procedures. You need to be fair, and that's how you take care of your people, is being firm and fair, and that's how you get the work done, and you get it done properly, and you get it done the right way to satisfy the needs of the citizens.
Thank you. Jimmy Brashear, 30-second rebuttal.
Yeah, on the Lexipo, his information is incorrect. It's not $70,000, and they do help us schedule our own type of policies and procedures. Another thing that I'll do that we got rid of was bring back our domestic violence investigator. That was a big part of our division that helped out a lot because in 2023 we had 450 domestic violence calls. And by having that investigator, they're able to manage and take care of those victims of that. And the victims or the deputies are able to continue to work those 25,000 calls with that domestic violence investigator.
Thank you. Next question is to Jeff Beecham. Jeff, how does your experience as a municipal police chief prepare you to lead sheriff's divisions typically not found in a city, such as jail administration, civil process, and dispatching? 2-minute response.
Well, as a municipal officer, you still have to have the jail facility, you have to have dispatch. And as far as the civil process, that is something that is designated by state statute just for the sheriff's department. As far as how my experience is with the management of people, you have got to manage your people in order to properly handle these situations. As far as the communication goes between the officers and the dispatch, and from the citizens to dispatch, you know, you've got to have good management of your personnel. You've got to be able to listen. You've got to be able to hear what people say. As far as the jail goes, your jail, the one big thing that you have with jail is you have a liability. It's a grave liability to the county. You've got to have policies and procedures intact, and you have to have the training of your personnel, and you have to have supervision of your personnel. And you know, as far as managing it, you have to have supervisors and managers that will be able to, you know, keep those guidelines and keep that liability down, and also protect your prisoners inside the jail. As far as civil process, years ago we used to do civil process. You know, so I mean, county would get one, and they couldn't make contact with them, with a person, and they give it to us as a municipal officer, and we would serve the civil process. The civil process is a pretty simple process. You have a piece of paper that you serve somebody and explain it to them. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg Sellers, 30 seconds.
I think it's a very big benefit to have worked and had experience at the sheriff's department versus a municipality. There's a lot of things you learn about the workings of a sheriff's department being there for 20 plus years that you wouldn't learn as a municipal officer.
Thank you. Brian Butts, 30 seconds.
I actually started out my career with Camden County as working in the jail, and I learned the most there of any other position I've been in, including when I was with the state. You learn how to interact with people, you learn how to treat people, and you learn how you treat people makes a big difference on how that interaction goes. And I carried that all the way through, and it made a big difference.
Thank you. Jimmy Brashear, 30 seconds.
Can you repeat that question for me again?
The question was for Jeff Beecham. How does your experience as a municipal police chief prepare you to lead sheriff's divisions typically not found in a city, such as jail administration, civil process, and dispatching?
Okay. Well, one benefit for me is that I've worked in all those divisions, and I ran the jail for 8 years. And for a sheriff, one of the biggest responsibilities of the county is the jail itself, because we have to worry about their 4th, 5th, 8th, 14th Amendments, along with their 42nd of the U.S. Code of the 1983. And it's just a big responsibility. And same way with the civil process is probably the second biggest liability for the sheriff in the county. And with the knowledge that I have, I'm the prime candidate to protect us on that.
Thank you. Chris Edgar, 30 seconds.
So one thing I will never pretend that I know everything. My wife makes sure to tell me that all the time. Really quick, from my management experience, it's about the people that you surround yourself with and the people that you place in the positions that have the expertise in that. It is, as a sheriff, you're not going to know everything. Nobody is. So you have to make sure you're managing those people and placing the right people in the right positions to make sure it's running smoothly. Thank you.
Jeff Beecham, final 30 seconds.
Okay, well, I agree with Chris, you know, and that's what I was getting at, is that you got to have the personnel that has the knowledge in doing that. You got to utilize those personnel in the right places in order to get that work done and to reduce liability. The jail is a big responsibility, and you have to have somebody that has knowledge in the jail, or at least has, you know, the ability to take care of the people within the jail.
Thank you. The next question is for Chris Edgar. In a House hearing, you recently testified in favor of putting wave runner deputies on Lake of the Ozarks. That bill did not pass, but as sheriff, would that be a priority? And what duties do you see these deputies performing, and how would you pay for that expansion?
Perfect. Thank you. Yes, I did testify on that bill, and it was not, it was looking to change for, instead of just maybe having jet skis, but having boats and jet skis. Would it be my first priority? Gosh, no. I just knew that the bill was coming up, and I wanted to get it up in front, because my philosophy is Camden County, if everybody is coming to Lake of the Ozarks from Missouri, why isn't Department of Public Safety helping fund that instead of Camden County having to flip the bill for all of that? That is kind of my philosophy. But Lord, no, it would not be the first things. That would be on the back burner. I just knew it was coming up. But eventually I would like to see the sheriff's office on the water. I'd like to have more local control instead of having just rely on the Coast Guard and the state to cover the lake. Not for taking anything away from the state, what they do, but I think having deputies there, it's going to be a lot more personable. We know the deputies, and we know that they know our citizens. I want to be a department that is open to the people, and that also includes the deputies, but it would not be the first thing. It would be way on the back burner, but eventually I would like to see the sheriff's office on the water, especially if we have a call on the water. Say, for example, the Water Patrol doesn't handle anything on the docks, the sheriff's office does. We have a deputy go down to the dock, person jumps on the boat and they takes off. The deputy's standing there. We all know how busy the Water Patrol is. We're not going to have a Water Patrolman ever be there to catch them. I mean, we kind of look like deputies with our hands in our pants. It's not very fortunate. So yes, that is something I would like to see eventually, but first and foremost, we need to take care of the deputies and make sure the citizens are taken care of. Thank you.
Jeff Beecham, 30 seconds.
In actual reality, the Water Patrol does have jurisdiction 1,000 foot from the 659 water level. And they do handle things on docks, and they do handle things that are, beyond the docks within that 1,000 feet. As far as prioritizing that is would be very low on the priority list because of the extensive training and the liability you would have and the safety of the officers that would be out there on the water on wave runners.
Thank you, Jeff. Jimmy Brashear, 30 seconds.
Yeah, I agree. It's not a main priority for us. It would be nice to have a unit on the water. I can look at one side, be on one side of the lake and look across the cove, and it's going to take me an hour to get there. So, having a water unit available to get there sooner while the land units are responding, it would be great, but it's not one of my main priorities.
Thank you. Brian Butts, 30 seconds.
That was a bad bill. It was just absolutely ridiculous in scope and dangerous to the officers. I mean, a guy out on this lake wearing a full body armor and a weapon and full uniform is just asking to get somebody killed. I can't believe she even filed that.
Thank you. Greg Sellers, 30 seconds.
Have a boat on the water, but again, it's something that you look at and check more into it on down the road, but it certainly wouldn't be a priority.
Thank you. 30-second rebuttal.
My philosophy was, yes, I would like to see it with the boat, not just jet skis. But the Water Patrol does not handle stuff on the docks. I know that because I called the Water Patrol dealing with this past summer with somebody coming on our neighbor's dock that I had to deal with. And they told me they would not respond. I had to call a deputy. So, but ultimately the deal is trying to, for the funding, is my philosophy is DPS funding it to cover the cost of the equipment and the officers as opposed to for the whole state to pay the taxes except for just us.
Thank you. The next question is for Greg Sellers. The sheriff has a complicated relationship with the county commission and the county prosecutor. What will you do as sheriff to fix these relationships? 2-minute response.
Go see them, communicate with them, try to work things out with them. I know we're going to have disagreements, but there's no sense in having fight. There has to be an open line of communications between the offices. There's currently not. So that's just something that you have to work on. I've been going to the commissioner's offices and talking to them. They've been very open to me. I feel like that relationship has already started, and I'd just like to further it on down the road.
Thank you. Jimmy Brashear, 30 seconds.
I agree. You got to have an open relationship with the commissioners. It's very important. We work hand in hand together. If they have an issue, I hope they come to me and talk to me about it so we can get it worked out. And the same way with myself. If I have an issue, I like to be able to go over and see them and work out that problem that we may have. Because if you don't work things out together, you're not going to get nowhere. And our main priority is the county and our citizens in the county.
Thank you. Brian Butts, 30 seconds.
I wouldn't have to do anything to fix it. I have a great relationship with the commissioners here and the potential commissioners here. That's a product of being involved in the community for so long. I tell you what I won't do. I won't scream at them. I won't threaten them on public forums. There's a right way and a wrong way to handle potential disagreements.
Thank you. Jeff Beecham, 30-second rebuttal.
Right now, I do have a good working relationship, even though I am at a municipal level, but we got to work together because they're within the city limits of Camden. That would continue on, and, as far as any disagreements or anything conflicts that we had would be handled behind closed doors and not out into the public.
Thank you. Chris Egger, 30 seconds.
Yes, I have a great working relationship. I would like to think right now, I talk to one of them on a regular basis. I know, Greg, you mentioned the prosecutor. I worked at the prosecutor's office. I was chief of operations, chief of investigations at the prosecutor's office, and our elected prosecutor, her and I worked very close. We worked a lot of major crimes, homicide cases together, so I know the sheriff's office and her would work very, very well together.
Thank you. Greg Sellers, final 30 seconds.
I have nothing to add.
Okay, thank you.
This question's for Brian Butts. Law enforcement personnel are sometimes allowed to resign for misconduct instead of termination. This practice is known as passing the trash. As sheriff, would you allow an employee to resign for bad conduct and policy violations, or would you terminate them? 2 minutes.
Absolutely would not allow them to resign. If they did something that they deserve to be let go for, they're going to be let go, period. And the reason why so many agencies do that is they do it for a courtesy for the guy that did something that he was going to get fired for. Because if you actually are terminated for a certain number of things, then anywhere else you go to apply, they're going to know that. If you just resign, it just shows you resigned. It absolutely does not have any of the information as to what surrounded that. And that's called the pass the trash law, essentially, is there are certain things that if a employee does that warrant him getting let go from the department, you have to report those. But no, I mean, if they are going to engage in those behaviors, then they're not an asset to the citizens of this county to begin with. And if they do that, then they don't deserve to be given a favor to be allowed to resign.
Thank you. Jeff Beecham, 30 seconds.
Okay, well, first of all, there is a new state statute that came out in May of 2023 that any chief of police or sheriff or any head of any law enforcement agency has to, upon request of another agency, they have to give the reason for the person's termination or resignation. And, as far as resigning for misconduct, it's a situation they need to be terminate them.
Thank you. Jimmy Brashear, 30 seconds.
I agree that it needs to be terminated. You know, the sheriff's office, we've been victims of that, where we hired employees that was passed around through other agencies, and when we ran their backgrounds through post, it came back with no records. And once we got in trouble with some of these employees, then we found out that it was passed to us through the other agencies. So.
Thank you. Greg Sellers, 30 seconds.
I think it certainly matters what the misconduct was and how egregious it was. Certainly, if it's a fireable offense, why they should be fired. There is certain steps now. You just can't walk into an officer and say you're fired now. There's certain steps and laws that you have to go to, and partially the officers need to know that the sheriff's at least got their back. So, thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Chris Edgar, 30 seconds.
Absolutely. If they violate a policy, that means they've done something wrong usually. Not only do they need to be terminated, but post, so the state agency that carries the license needs to also be notified that, hey, this officer has done this, so they could either remove that officer, because ultimately we don't want bad cops. I was involved with charging bad officers anyways, so
Thank you.
thank you.
Brian Butts, 30 seconds.
It is important that your guys think that, and gals think that you have their back. I absolutely 100% would support my staff and have their backs as long as it's reciprocal. If they don't have your back, then they're a bad cop, they're going to do bad cop things. If they have your back, then they're not.
Thank you. The following 3 questions will be answered by each of you. You'll each have 2 minutes, and we'll start with Greg Sellers. Greg, the chief deputy, also known as the undersheriff, is an important person given they are next in line in the absence of the elected sheriff. Who do you plan to hire as your undersheriff and why? 2-minute response.
I've chosen Curtis Wirtz. He's a resident down here in Camden County, has been for several years. He's worked 27 years with the Highway Patrol, currently works for the Board of Healing Arts, has a investigator, very good person. I've known him for years. He was my supervisor when I was in the narcotics unit. Just very knowledgeable, family man, lifelong law enforcement officer. Just very, very fortunate to be able to convince him to side me in this endeavor.
Thank you. Brian Butts, your undersheriff.
I've been holding out. I've known this, and he's agreed for it's been quite some time. I have been holding out of publicly announcing it due to his request, because his wife currently works at the sheriff's office, and they are afraid that she will get some flack and make her work life difficult. So I'm going to call him out right now. That better not happen. Chad Bailey will be my chief deputy. I chose him because he's a man of integrity. He's a man of experience. He is easily the biggest, most recent loss due to the culture of the sheriff's office, and also because he's somebody who doesn't always agree with me. I don't want a yes man. I don't want somebody that's loyal to me. I want somebody that's loyal to the department and to the county. And if I'm wrong on something, I want a guy that's going to say, hey, I think you're wrong, and here's why. And then we can have a discussion about it. That's what.
Thank you. Chris Edgar, your undersheriff.
So, I'm down to 3 people right now. I have not confirmed. I don't want to put their name out there right now just because I don't have a definite yes. But ultimately, I want people to vote for me, not because of my undersheriff. I don't want people, just because I have one, I don't want votes for that. I want you to vote for me because of who I am, and you entrust that I would make the right decision. But I have 3 candidates right now. I'll tell you, one of them's a retired commander with the Missouri State Highway Patrol. He just recently retired. I've been in talks with him. Another one is a prior administrator for another agency, and then I have another one that was a prior administrator for Kansas City PD. My goal is to bring somebody from outside the area with experience that does not know how the inner workings of the system works. Ultimately, I'm not part of the good old boy system, and I want to bring somebody in that is not going to know anything about that. So once I do have a confirmation, like I said, I'm in the process interviewing a couple of them, but I don't want to throw names out there until I know for sure. I just don't want to do that to family. So thank you.
Thank you. Jeff Beecham, your undersheriff, please.
Okay, well, presently, I do not have anybody selected to be my undersheriff. As everybody says, it is a very important position. You have to have somebody that is loyal to your mission. You have to have somebody that you can trust, and somebody that does know how to manage people and how to come forth with the citizens and regain the trust. At this time, I have not selected anybody. I have thought about several people, but I have not confronted anybody and asked them to be my undersheriff. And once again, it's a very important position, and I'm taking my time, and I'll make sure I make the right choice.
Thank you. Jimmy Brashear, your undersheriff, please.
My undersheriff is Sergeant Mac Brand of the Missouri State Highway Patrol. He's a 20-year veteran law enforcement officer of the Highway Patrol. He was also a major in the military. He's a great guy. He's going to bring in some new ideas for the sheriff's office, and he's very disciplined, and I think he can help me run a very efficient sheriff's office.
Thank you. The next question will start with Chris Edgar. The citizens approved a tax increase a few years ago to pay for more road deputies. However, some deputy positions remain unfilled. Why is this happening, and what will you do to fix it? 2 minutes.
Thank you. Ultimately, we need to start looking at taking care of the deputies. If the guys feel like they're being taken care of, ultimately we're going to start recruiting. From a leadership standpoint, you need to lead by example. So that's one of the things I plan to be a working sheriff. I know I'll have to take care of the administrative procedures, but I plan on being out there occasionally with the guys. You lead by example. They see you out in the trenches, and they're going to want to work for you, as opposed to, that's the difference between your leader and your boss. I'm not a boss. It's not my mentality. I want to be a leader. I want to work alongside. To be a leader, you have to learn how to be a good follower. So ultimately there, and then I would like to have a citizens advisory board where I have members from all over the community where we could sit down and we could start solving problems. I think it's important for community having input on the decisions that their tax money is being used for. So if we just recently passed a sales tax, let's look at maybe utilizing some of that money and cutting a lot of this fat to start looking at getting them a pay scale. And I think that would be important for having a community involvement so everybody knows, hey, here's what our problems are. I can bring, as the sheriff, I could bring this to you and say, hey, here's what's working and here's what's not. What do you guys as a community have for a suggestion? What do you guys think? Where am I missing the boat? And I think by ultimately all of us working together, we could solve a lot of these problems. So thank you.
Thank you. Jeff Beecham, 2 minutes.
Okay, would you repeat the question again, please?
The citizens approved a tax increase a few years ago to pay for more road deputies. However, some deputy positions remain unfilled. Why is this happening, and what will you do to fix it?
Okay, well, first of all, we passed this so that we could get raises for the sheriff's deputies. As far as the vacancies go, I do understand, and I have the opportunity to see that it is hard to find police officers anymore, or deputies, or any type of law enforcement officer, because it's just not near as attractive field as it used to be. There's a lot of criticism, and it does lessen your pool of people to get. However, you have got to have a recruiting program to recruit these people. You have to have a retention plan to keep these deputies on board with you. And then also what you've got to do is you've got to make sure that you have a culture that they will stay there for. And, and spread the word. And, word of mouth is the best thing, when it comes down to hiring. And it can be your worst enemy. And right now, I believe that is, a problem that we have. We have deputies that's not talking fond of, the administration. They're not talking fond of the culture in which they have. And, so you've got to fix all that. You've got to have a recruiting program, and you've got to have a retention program. And, I have the experience in all three of those. And, it is a problem, but it's not a problem that can't be resolved.
Thank you. Jimmy Brashear, 2 minutes.
Throughout the United States, there's a shortage of law enforcement officers, and you can go to any county or any police department in Missouri, and they're going to tell you how much they're short. We've set our goals up to a certain level on how many officers we want to hire for the sheriff's office, and we get applicants, but they don't meet our criteria, our standards to come to work for us. We kind of raise that up a little higher, so it's a little bit harder to locate good quality law enforcement officers. With the positions that we have available right now, I think my goal is to take some of those positions and use that money to help for incentives and for a pay scale for our deputies to retain what we have. And as time goes by, if we start getting a big applicant pool, we'll look into that and start hiring from that pool. Having an academy that we teach at the sheriff's office and the site coordinator of, so I get to know these students, and I get the firsthand picks of these guys when they get ready to graduate, if I want them in our department or not. And that's one of the benefits of hosting those academies here at the sheriff's office. But I think I'd rather hold out for good quality deputies instead of just hiring everyone that comes off the street.
Thank you. Greg Sellers?
It is certainly a nationwide issue of not being able to hire officers, and if there was any one or two fixes that could be done, why somebody else would have thought of it by now, and there's just not. It's everybody's going to have a problem, but you have to make a department that people want to go to work at. They don't see the turmoil from the outside. They have to have the confidence in their leadership. They have to know that the sheriff and the undersheriff has got their back, and they've got to be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. The pay scale is the big part of that.
Thank you. Brian Butts?
If you can't attract and retain good, knowledgeable, and effective law enforcement officers, then you're forced to take whatever's left. And the people of this community deserve way more than whatever's left. They might get some people there. We pay decent now, not great, but decent, but they can't keep people. We are a resume stop for a lot of guys straight out of the academy, come get some, spot on the resume, and then go work for an agency that they actually can stand going to work every day. You fix that by, plain and simple, eliminating the good old boy system once and for all. You get rid of the cronyism, you get rid of the favoritism, you get rid of the corruption, you institute a matrix for promotions. There's a detective test for the guys that want to be a detective. There's a sergeant's test for guys that want to be sergeant. That way you determine who is the best option for that position not because of the favoritism and cronyism that we've seen for a very long time, but because they're best suited for that position. Guys know that if they put in the work, they're going to advance. You do a pay scale so they know, okay, I know what I'm going to be making in 3 years. That's very important. You provide prepaid legal services as part of their salary. That's one of the reasons why law enforcement across the country is having such a hard time, because guys are worried they're going to get sued and lose everything for doing the right thing. That's always in the back of their mind. And
Thank you. The final question of tonight, and we'll start that with Jimmy Brashear. And Jimmy, we've heard a lot this evening about possible changes at Camden County. What is the most pressing issue facing the sheriff's office, and what do you plan to do about it?
One of the biggest things that we always worry about is lawsuits. And, you know, they talk about cronyism and mass exodus of the sheriff's office, and that's not true. And if you guys want to find out, just call the county and ask them how many commissioned deputies have left the sheriff's office. And it's going to be a low number. You know, we retain a lot of our deputies. And I personally go out and do things with our deputies and meet with them. Just today I went out with a few of our deputies and played a tournament of golf with them. And it's good to socialize with our deputies and get to know them and their families. And one of the things with the sheriff's office, you know, is continue the training. CIT is very important. It's some mental issues that we have to deal with. One of the things that we have to work on is the mental health of our deputies. And it's a big issue, and it's a requirement now that every 3 years that they get a mental evaluation done. And we're setting safeguards in place to help those deputies with mental illness or mental health that they need help with, and along with our community that might need help for mental health. You know, we probably help 3 people a day that tries to commit suicide and find them locations where they can go to and get more help. But another thing is that, you know, continuing with the CROs and SROs in our county, you know, we got to get together with our community and then get more involved with them and work on cyber crimes, you know, active shooters for both the schools and the churches, and how to not to become a victim. You know, that's a lot of big issues that we're having today in law enforcement throughout the state and in the U.S.
Thank you. Brian Butts, 2 minutes. Do you need me to repeat the question?
please do.
We've heard a lot this evening about possible changes at Camden County. What is the most pressing issue facing the sheriff's office, and what do you plan to do about it?
The most pressing issue, plain and simply, is deputy retention. I'm flabbergasted that there's a claim that they actually retain deputies. I left there about 5 years ago. There's 3 deputies still on staff that I worked with 5 years ago. That is not good retention. And there's a reason why. In an atmosphere where law enforcement agencies are having a hard time getting good people, you need to work really hard to make sure you're a place that everyone wants to come work at. Salary is a part of that. Good equipment is part of that. You know, take-home cars are part of the benefits. Working in this area that is very friendly to law enforcement and very supportive of law enforcement is a huge attractor. There is no reason why we can't attract good quality law enforcement officers at Camden County that stay here forever, because this particular area has everything that somebody would want to work in. That's how bad it is right now. Because even though we have all those things to attract people and keep them here, they're still leaving. And we have to fix that. Basically, how you fix that is the same way that we did with the school. It's through policy, it's through leadership, it's through creating programs that encourage people to stay. Let they realize this is a good gig, and I'm going to stay here.
Thank you. Chris Egger, 2 minutes. Do you need me to repeat the question? We've heard a lot this evening about possible changes at Camden County. What is the most pressing issue facing the sheriff's office, and what do you plan to do about it?
Thank you for that question. First and foremost, we need to take care of the people. One of the things I look at is people first policy. If you get the deputies taken care of, they're going to in return follow that by taking care of our community. So we have to start looking at how can we take care of the guys. Let's look at our leadership. Let's take care of it. Let's start by leading by example. Let's make sure we're looking at compensating the deputies. Nobody wants to work for a place if they know that they're going to go to work and they're never going to see a raise. That just blows my mind. I couldn't imagine working at a place not knowing I don't have a pay scale and I'm not going to see a raise in the future or ever. But look at the policies. I know Lexapol's being used, but I've also been in talks with another company that you have to make sure you have policies for the officers to know what they need, the bounds that they need to stay within. Not only does it protect the officers, but it protects the community. So I've been in talks with another company that offered to come write the policies here with myself and the agency for under $1,000. He's a friend of mine. And that's another option. But one of the biggest pressing problems that's within this community that I believe is fentanyl. I think we need to look at our drug issue. We need to make sure that the officers are first trained in it. And the officers, if an officer stops somebody with drugs, they can actually handle it. They don't have to stop what they're doing and call an egg and turn it over to a drug task force that the officer can actually see that drug case all the way through. Let's get rid of the middleman. Let's start taking care of our community. So, thank you.
Thank you. Greg Sellers, the most pressing issue facing the Sheriff's Department. 2 minutes.
Well, I'm going to take it in a little different area or a direction. When somebody calls the Sheriff's Department, you need to call them back. That's the thing I hear in the community when I'm out talking to people. Well, I can't get the Sheriff's Department to call me back. Nobody will call me. They need to, so they need callbacks. So that's one of the very first things that we're going to get fixed is that the officers are going to call people back. Again, deputy retention is very important. But there's some things that the people of Camden County need to see improved, and retaining deputies is not necessarily that first thing. They want to know that their needs are being met, and I think that's very important. Again, the fentanyl thing, if you think that you're going to have an officer, that you're going to take an officer off the road and let him work a narcotics investigation all the way from start to finish, you don't know anything about narcotics. That's just not going to happen, or it shouldn't happen at least. There's people out there that does that kind of work, and let them do it. They know what they're doing. But that's the main thing, I think. Be answerable to the community.
Thank you. Jeff Beecham, the most pressing issue facing Camden County. What are you going to do about it? 2 minutes.
Okay, I feel like the most pressing issue is the trust of the public and our citizens within the county. If you can't trust a cop, who can you trust? And so we need to develop a plan within the department so that we can earn the trust back from the people. We need to start with the leadership. We need to lead and guide, direct, and coach, our personnel so that we can, to meet the needs of the people and to be able to supervise and promote teamwork. We need to change the culture inside so that we can have people that are happy and happy to come back to work. With the culture, you're going to have retention, and we need to look at where we're placing our deputies. We have deputies congregated. It's no secret. You drive through the city of Camden and you'll see 3 or 4 cars sitting at one of the convenience stores, but yet they get a call out in the county on the far north end, and it's going to take them 40 to 45 minutes running the tires off of that car to get there to try to help somebody. We need to place deputies in these areas, and those are some of the pressing issues that we need to do. When we look at the administrative staff, yes, you need to have the administrative staff, but you also have to have the deputies, and that's going to be out here taking care of the people's needs. So I think we need to reduce some of the administrative staff and place them out on the roads and take care of the needs of the people.
Thank you, Jeff. We will now do candidate closing statements, 1 minute each. Chris Egger, your closing remarks.
First, I'd like to thank you guys again. I think it's important to bring the sheriff's office back to the people. If you look at any of my stuff, it is people first policies. We need to make sure the citizens are first taken care of. And I don't know about you, but I don't know of any deputy that shouldn't be able to handle any drugs. I mean, we give them a gun and a badge, they should be able to handle drugs. We shouldn't just have to call drug task force every time for that. But ultimately, I think it's important that we take care of our citizens, and ultimately that Citizens Advisory Board, that would be set up of members throughout all communities, not just focusing on one area, but I want to make sure the entire lake area would be taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff Beecham, 1 minute closing.
Okay, this is going to be a very important election, and everything that you've heard tonight it should take some of the questions out of your mind about who needs to be sheriff, who has the experience and the knowledge. And I've had 35 years of law enforcement experience. It's all been at the municipal level, but I have worked with county, and it's all on the same basis of taking care of the people. And that's what it's all about. You take care of your people. It's not all about making arrests or coming out here and see how many tickets you write. It's about taking care of your people, and you need to get the trust of the people. You need to place the people in the right positions so that we can get the needs taken care of, and you need to place them in the right ends of the county.
Thank you. Jimmy Brashear, 1 minute, closing statement.
Yeah. Just remember, with 35 years of law enforcement experience at the sheriff's office and 8 years of serving as the undersheriff, I've had the privilege of working in every division of the sheriff's office, which gave me a deeper understanding of the responsibilities and the knowledge of running an efficient sheriff's office. One of the key roles of the sheriff's office is ensure that our community is safe, not just from crime, but also from the internal liabilities within the sheriff's office itself. As you know, that jail, like we talked about earlier, is one of the biggest lawsuit areas that the sheriff has to look at. And with my experience, with the jail, has given me firsthand insight into the management of these risks. And I have implemented best safety practices and to improve safety and reduce incidents and ensure the proper treatment of the inmates and our jailers. As your sheriff, I'll focus on areas of community trust, effective law enforcement, and innovation.
Thank you. Greg Sellers, 1 minute, closing remark.
I'd just like to say the experience does help. Having 20 plus years in law enforcement experience, 20 of those years being at the sheriff's department in several different capacities. People need to have confidence in their sheriff's department, and I've heard a word passed around here a couple of times tonight that just really eaten at me, that your sheriff's department is corrupt. make no mistake, your sheriff's department is not corrupt. I don't know where that's come from. There's certainly problems at the sheriff's department that needs to be fixed and addressed. Corruption is not one of them. That's kind of criminal things is corruption, and I don't think there's any criminal activities going on at your sheriff's department. I'll make you a good sheriff.
Thank you. Brian Butts, closing remarks.
You guys, throughout the course of this campaign and even tonight, have heard lots of platitudes. I actually have successfully done everything that I'm telling you I'm going to do. I'm the only candidate up here that has actually won an election and kept every single campaign promise. Our definitions of corruption must be different, because when you have an administration that is blatantly willing to violate citizens' rights for personal and or political gain, to me that's pretty corrupt. It does exist, and I think everyone knows to some extent that it does. I actually am pretty proud that I have the most well-rounded experience here. I've served in the military, I've been on the road, I've been in the jail, I've worked for the state as an investigator. I have worked a drug case from inception to conviction. I've worked a rape case from inception to conviction. In fact, I have a 100% conviction rate on all of my arrests.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very, very much for being here tonight, and thank you for the candidates. Huh? I encourage each of you tonight to take the time, get one-on-one with them. If there's something specific you want to ask about, you get a chance to talk to them, they get a chance to talk to you. Take advantage of that. That is really special. We have a very, very important election coming up on November 5th, and we need you to vote. There is a voting guide that's available out on the table for those of you who need anything about it. There's a voting packet for you to use yourself or for you to use in your family or neighbors, whatever. Take advantage of that and get one of those voting packets. Just a reminder, on Wednesday of this week, day after tomorrow, we're doing the District 2 Commissioner debate. It'll be here, the same format in the same place, and we're going to do that as well. I'd like to also, on the week from Wednesday, we're doing the District 123 state rep debate on that night as well, and that will be here. And this has been a good venue. I want to thank Gail Griswold for the work that she's done and with her staff, and if you could thank her.
All right, well, you guys were the soft opening that we didn't expect all these people here. It's awesome for the Republican Club and the Central Committee to have so many engaged people. I apologize for the parking. We're going to work on that and the shuttling, and thanks for toughing out. You guys got to stress our systems for the first time, so sorry about that, but thank you. I appreciate all the candidates being here, and we look forward to making some improvements, and we're not open to the public yet, so keep an eye out for that when we actually open. But I really appreciate you guys toughing out all the things for the parking, the heating, the sound. We haven't tested the sound before. I'm sure your eyes are a little bit frustrated, but so I appreciate your patience. Thank you.
And I asked John to say a few words here too as well, but just as a reminder, our Camden County Republican Club is opening its headquarters this Saturday. It's in Camdenton. It's right next to McDonald's, and we're having a grand opening on Saturday morning from 10 to noon. And stop by. You'll be able to talk to a lot of people and get a lot of information, and maybe even buy a T-shirt or a hat. For our Trump here. Yeah, Trump's going to be there as well.
Trump will be there.
Trump is going to be there.
Yep. So the Central Committee is your elected officials for the Republican Party in Camden County. So a lot of people don't know that each township in Camden County has a man and a woman that represent you, and that's what Matt and I are part of. Les is part of the club, but we are your elected officials for the Republican Party. If you guys got any questions for us, by all means, come see us, talk to us. If we don't know the answer, we can find it. These 5 guys, the Central Committee implemented a voluntary vetting process for Republicans this year. The 5 that showed up tonight did vet, and they all 5 passed the Republican vetting process. And we want to thank them for going through that process and kind of testing that out. It was our first year doing that. It's been really good. I appreciate every one of these guys for participating. Again, guys, thank you. We appreciate you guys sitting up here at the firing squad, your answers. Mingle with these folks, hand them some stuff, ask them for their vote. Get out there. Good luck. We appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Okay, thank you for coming, and I think the bar's still open tonight, so you can still socialize before you head home.